In the days of Israel's judges, there rose a man of unmatched strength, chosen by God, yet tested by weakness. His name was Samson, a hero, a warrior, and a man whose fall would echo louder than his victories. From the barren womb of Manoah's wife came a divine promise. An angel of the Lord appeared, declaring that her child would be set apart from birth, a Nazirite consecrated to God. No razor would ever touch his head, for his strength and destiny were tied to the vow he was chosen to bear. Samson's life was not his own, but a vessel of God's plan to deliver Israel from the iron grip of the Philistines. Even before his birth, the heavens had declared his role. He was to grow into a mighty warrior, and his name would echo across the land as both blessing and warning. Samson's childhood was marked by awe and mystery. As he grew, the Spirit of the Lord stirred within him, and strength beyond human measure became his gift. His parents watched with both wonder and fear, knowing the vow of the Nazirite would shape every choice he made. He did not drink wine, nor eat what was unclean, for he was bound to God's covenant. Yet even as a child, there was a restlessness in his eyes, a fire that no rule could fully tame. Samson was chosen, but he was also human, and desire would one day test his destiny. Samson's heart wandered to the land of the Philistines, where he saw a woman whose beauty captured him instantly. He demanded of his parents, "Get her for me, for she pleases me well." Though they warned him, Samson's desire burned brighter than wisdom. This was the first crack in his sacred vow, a choice not guided by covenant, but by passion. Yet even here, God's plan was at work, for through this union a conflict would be stirred between Israel and its oppressors. The stage was set for triumph and downfall alike. On the road to claim his bride, a roaring lion charged at Samson. With bare hands, he tore the beast apart as though it were nothing, and strength surged through him like fire. Days later, he returned to find bees and honey within its carcass, a strange sign of sweetness from death. From this came his riddle to the Philistines. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. Yet betrayal brewed, for his bride revealed the secret under pressure. Anger flared, and Samson struck down 30 men, leaving bitterness in his wake. When the Philistines wronged him again, Samson's fury grew wild. He caught 300 foxes, tied torches to their tails, and set them loose through the fields. Flames consumed the crops, vineyards, and groves, leaving the land in ruin and the Philistines enraged. This act of vengeance made him both a hero to Israel and a terror to his enemies. Yet Samson's path was not one of peace, but of endless bloodshed. Each strike against the Philistines pulled him deeper into a cycle of violence that would one day turn against him. When the Philistines came to bind him, Samson broke free with the strength of a storm. Grabbing the jawbone of a donkey, he struck down 1,000 men. The battlefield shook with cries of fear, and Samson stood as one man who carried the might of an army. Victory was his, but weariness struck him. Parched and near death, he cried to the Lord, and water miraculously flowed from a hollow place. Even in triumph, Samson's need for God's hand was clear, yet pride whispered that his strength was his own to command. Samson became a judge over Israel for 20 years. His presence alone struck fear into the Philistines, and his strength was their torment. He was Israel's defender, their weapon of hope against the constant oppression of their enemies. But Samson's leadership was not marked by wisdom or mercy. He lived by impulse, driven by anger and desire. though God had called him to greatness. Samson's weakness of spirit lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the moment it would be exposed. One night, Samson entered Gaza to be with a harlot. When the Philistines lay in wait to trap him, he rose at midnight, seized the massive city gate, and carried it on his shoulders to a hill far away. His strength was unmatched, his defiance legendary. The people marveled at him, but his enemies never ceased their plotting. Samson's victories were loud, but they also painted a target on his back. With each act of might, the Philistines grew more determined to discover the secret behind his invincible power. Then came Delilah, a woman of beauty and cunning, who captured Samson's heart. The Philistines bribed her with silver, urging her to uncover his secret. With words of affection, she pressed him daily, her persistence wearing down his guarded spirit. 3 times Samson deceived her with lies, and 3 times she tested him with false bindings. Yet love blinded him to betrayal. What began as a game grew dangerous, for Samson's heart was already entangled. He lingered too close to ruin, unaware of how near it was. At last, Samson's soul grew weary. Delilah's endless pleading broke his resolve, and in weakness he confessed, "No razor has touched my head, for if I am shaven, my strength will leave me." With these words, the unbreakable secret was laid bare. Delilah lulled him to sleep upon her lap, and while he slept, she ordered his hair cut. The covenant was broken, and when Samson awoke, he found the Spirit of the Lord had departed from him. The mighty judge was now no more than an ordinary man. The Philistines seized Samson, gouged out his eyes, and bound him in bronze chains. Once a terror to nations, he was reduced to grinding grain like a beast in their prison. His fall was complete, and humiliation became his daily portion. Crowds mocked him, jeering at the broken man who once struck fear into armies. Samson's pride had been stripped away along with his strength, leaving only a shadow of the hero Israel once trusted. The strong man was now the lowest among men. The Philistine lords gathered in their great temple of Dagon to celebrate Samson's downfall. "Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands," they shouted, filling the hall with laughter and scorn. Samson was brought forth to entertain them in his weakness. They placed him between the pillars as thousands looked on from the roof and balconies. Their jeers cut deeper than chains, but in his blindness, Samson saw more clearly than ever before. For the first time, he turned fully back to the God who had chosen him. In the temple of his enemies, Samson whispered a desperate plea. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Strengthen me just once more, that with this blow I may pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes." His voice trembled, but faith burned fiercely in his chest. His hands gripped the pillars, and his muscles tensed with a strength he thought lost forever. Samson was no longer fighting for pride, but for deliverance and redemption. This was not a victory of arrogance, but of surrender to the God who never abandoned him. With one final cry, Samson pushed against the pillars. The stones cracked, the beams split, and the temple trembled under his power. The walls collapsed in thunderous ruin, crushing the lords of the Philistines and the crowds who mocked him. In death, Samson struck down more than he had in life. His sacrifice became a victory for Israel, a judgment against the enemies of God. The strong man who fell in weakness rose again in faith, ending his story in both tragedy and triumph. Samson's body was retrieved by his family, laid to rest in his father's tomb. Israel mourned their judge, whose life was a warning and a wonder. His strength had been unmatched, yet his weakness nearly consumed him. Still, God's purpose was fulfilled. The story of Samson echoes through time as a lesson that true strength is not in muscles or might, but in faith and obedience. His fall reminds us that pride destroys, but even in failure, God can redeem, bringing light out of the darkest defeat. Samson's story is not only of strength, but of surrender, not only of failure, but of redemption. For in his final act, he showed that even in brokenness, God can bring victory through sacrifice.